How are you, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I watched your whole thing with Dave Stryker. It was great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, he's something. I actually went back and listened to a lot of the record that he just did with the strings and horns. It was cool, man. The movie music was cool.
Yeah, totally. It was a different. I mean, like you said, it's been done before, but with the
Yeah,
element strings and yeah, I thought it was. Especially considering like the other things that he's done in the past.
sure, with the organ trios. I got to ask though. I don't know if this is true, but they were zooming in a house in the winter, and they were recording in that house. Did was that for filming purposes, or did they actually record in that house? Because it sounded too good.
I don't know. I could ask him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like, wow, if they just recorded that in their house.
No, I don't think so. Because he did say it was in a studio,
Yeah,
and uh, and the strings weren't with him. And for some of them, they were overdubbed, I think.
yeah, it was killing.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
cool. All right. Well, hey man, welcome. It's
thank you.
good to really talk to you. Sorry
I
it
know.
took
I think we've spoken once on the phone when you really were, so gracious to try to help me out. I think you hooked me up with Justin Lee a couple summers ago.
Oh yeah, that's right for a gig. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's crazy that we've never actually played together, I don't think.
That really is strange, especially since we're so close in the area. You've got sweet music over there. I'm at Wall High School and at Manasquan.
Right.
I keep on trying to make it out one night in a chubby pickle. Uh,
Oh, that's been fun. Last night was a killer, man. We had a nice crowd. There's a good amount of guitar players who come for sure.
okay.
But no slouches. Everybody can play, it's
Who
pretty.
played drums with you last night?
Dan Weeks was the house drummer.
Okay. I don't
What?
know Dan, but I know Joe Peterson, and I
Oh
know
yeah,
they play
yeah,
together.
they're tight. Yeah, Dan and I just finished out a record that's out. Dan's a good drummer, really good drummer, and a bunch of other drummers came in. Sometimes Bobby Boyd plays.
I love Bobby. Bobby and I go way back.
Yeah, Bob's great. Bob's great. All right, man. Well, let's do the promotion first.
Okay.
We'll do the thing. The new album, New Town, right?
Yeah.
RED123. First of all, I want to ask you about the name. How'd you come up with the name of the group?
Okay. The name of the group was, I didn't come up with it about, I don't know how long ago. I had just finished playing with The Outcry, which was a pop band, 90s, early 2000s. And a guy named Eric Clark, really great drummer and a huge fan of the same music I'm into, like Brian Blades, Pat Metheny, and we met at we kind of connected with that whole early Metheny stuff. And he said, "Hey, man, do you want to play some jazz music?" And I said, "Sure." And John Walby, I don't know if you know John, bass
Mhm.
player, played with um, who's he playing with? Pat Roddy and folks like that. He's a Berkeley cat.
Mhm.
Um, I said, sure. So came up with the band name of Red123 for this trio. And funny that he asked the question because I had called him several years ago before I released the first record, which is called Folk Song, which is also out. And I said, hey, man, would you mind if I used the name? And he was very funny. He said, well, frankly, I was considering using it for a future project. And I said, okay, no problem. So he called me back a bit later, texted me back, and he said, further reflection, I think you should go ahead and use the name. So that's really what it was.
Okay.
Yeah,
And and what it like? Is there any significance to the name, or it's just
none at all. I just, he came up with it. And I thought it was really great. Red 123. I think it was just simple.
right? I mean, it's so symmetrical, right? You got the three letters in red. One, two,
Yeah.
three. It's
And
pretty.
he's an art he was he has an art degree, so maybe he knows a lot about looking at things visually or how things kind of fall that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that could be. Cool. So talk about the process, the concept of the new recording. I really enjoyed it. I listened to it several times, as I told you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's really well done. So was there an overall concept for the record?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this second record, the writing process was going on even when I was releasing folk song, um, and so some of the songs have definite stories. Some of the songs are kind of like just out of experimenting with different voicings and different tunings on the guitar. And but the funny thing is no, because you're a guitar player as well. when you play with different tunings, it lends your ear to different dissonances on the guitar. You're not playing the same forms, but you still create the same melodies over it, and the harmony seems to come to be the same because that's what you're kind of attuned to, whatever you like harmonically. But there was some tunes that stretched out, like a tune called Shuffle 96,
Mhm.
which was a very different. The riff in the beginning of that was kind of different and exploration, but. The process is really I write at home, and I well, can't see it here, just have a small Pro Tools rig, and then I would come up with mocking up as much as I could, send out tracks to some of the players that I like to use, and have them send back something that they can do in their studio. And of course, it was kind of on the back end of COVID, and then perhaps once I'm comfortable with it, to go in and record this well, what this was what 7 original songs, and there's a single out too. I don't know if you've heard it, Wichita Lineman. I just released that.
Okay, that's the one you just said. Yeah, I did not get a chance to hear that
Yeah,
one.
it's the harmonica player on there is Rob Paparazzi, and he's just yeah, I mean he's the closest thing to Toots I could find.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
plays really beautifully on it. Yeah, man.
Cool. And yeah, and talk about the full recording though, was it done in studio or did you do some of your own?
Okay, everything was done in the studio with the exception of some of the guitars. I have this Kemper amp that I use at home that I got from a good friend of mine, Rob Lebret, who's just an incredible musician and engineer. He's and mixer. He's engineered the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 Bruce records and mixed the last couple. But he was a former student right from Brick Township,
Okay.
and he had this Kemper amp. And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "Well, it looks like a toaster. It actually looks like a toaster." I leave it to the Germans to create something that you need a degree in engineering to figure out how to use. But it's basically similar to a modeling app. And so I was able to do a lot of the recording on guitar at home. Go back into the studio at Joe DeMeo's place in Long Branch at Shorefire, which I love playing in that studio. It's a huge room. He's got amazing mics, the drums, and big shout out to Joe. The drums always sound great in there. And then I was able to just reamp a lot of the tracks I was able to do at home, which saved a lot of money. As you know, studio time's expensive, so I could record what I needed at home, take what I wanted over there, and just reamp it through some really great amps.
Right. Yeah, he's got some incredible equipment. And you're right, that room is awesome, you know. But it's
It
got a certain sound to it too.
it
I've only
does.
yeah, I've only been in there 2, 3 times. Last year I was in. Yeah, and he's great. He's great to work with for sure.
He is. The first record we used some piano tracks over at Steve Jankowski's place.
That's where he,
Steve, man, does he get a great sound out of that studio? I know he's using Digital Performer, but boy, Steve's he's a fantastic musician, and I Digba Ogunbayi, or the piano player on the record. I'm sure you're probably saying, "Who is this cat?"
yeah.
Uh,
My next question. Yeah.
he's a remarkable player. He just finished up his doctorate in jazz studies at Eastman,
Okay.
living in Philadelphia now, and he's been very important to this music, bouncing things off of and playing on all the records, along with the other musicians on it, Tom Catone, who you probably are familiar with, and also this young cat, Chris Paredes from Jersey City. I think he's about 25. He went to Jersey City State, but he really has plays very free. On this record, there was a couple tracks that he played on, a couple tracks that Tom played on. Tom's very locked in, and Chris played on some of like the things like "There Will Be a Day," where it's more, hey man, I need you to play like Jack DeJohnette, just just play sound sources, and I'm not worried about time so much as it is about what you can do musically against, what is a really, for sake of better, a very simple tune, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You could definitely hear the DeJohnette sort of influence on that one for sure. I'm sorry, and who is the bass player in your group?
Bass player Cody McCory.
Yeah.
Cody played on this record. He played on the other record. Cody is he's a genius, man. He's an unbelievable musician. He also plays with Thank You Scientist, with that progressive rock band. He also plays. He has got a thing called We Just Cut the Grass, and he does this thing every year with Nosferatu, where they create live music to the original movie, at different theaters. And he plays with. He's an incredible electric bass player. He doesn't play as much upright, so he says, but his upright I like using the double and the upright on my stuff, and he did a great job. Very melodic stuff
Yeah.
that pull off.
Yeah, I was very impressed with his playing for sure. Obviously, my ears are kind of tuned to the bass
Yeah,
now.
you should meet him one day. He's a really sweet guy. He lives in Toms River, Manasquan High School graduate. I think he's reasonably young. Yeah,
Wow, yeah. I mean, isn't it like so it's so refreshing to have so many great musicians around us
yeah.
and even just the two studios you mentioned, like Jankowski's studio, who where, like I said, we just finished our last record was done there. Um, it's just it's incredible to have this pool of musicians, and yet a lot of people, we're sort of insulated, but not, like we have the New York scene, the Philly scene, but really New Jersey does have kind of its own thing.
I agree. I think the Jersey scene has its own thing, and there's as because Jersey's so, especially the Asbury, Jersey Shore area is so associated with the rock and pop thing, is that, there's a great stable of jazz musicians and I would say instead of jazz, improvisational musicians in the area that are just killer,
I
yourself included.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, no, it is cool to. I mean, even like when I do these jam sessions, there's always someone comes out, and I'm like always kind of floored. I was like, I didn't even know you were around, man. You just,
Right. And
just
they're like your next door neighbor. You don't even
yeah,
realize
yeah,
it. And yeah.
it's wild.
The record's doing really well. I have a publicist named Scott Thompson who worked with Schofield and Lovano, a few other players that I've hired for this record. And it's been very helpful. Um, uh, I was very fortunate to be included in the Jazz Congress this year. They have that jukebox jury that they do, and the single was picked, and it was used in that, which was great for the exposure. And then another thing that's happening with this record is if you are in All About Jazz, you're probably familiar with that. Uh,
Right.
Song of the Day, we have what's last count was 3,752 hits on the
Wow.
song. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's great.
I think the next closest one is like 1,500, but that was one that's been out for like 60 days to 90 days. So it's clear that people are, at least giving it a shot to listen to the single. And I think I sent you that promo for the single.
Yeah.
Um, so, along with that, some of the reviews I'm getting, we're getting some airplay, believe it or not, in Hawaii, uh,
Oh,
NPR, which is great. I'm hoping that Scott will be able to get us some local airplay at BGO would be very nice, and some more reviews, etc. There's been a couple all about jazz, Jazz Weekly. Let me see, I have some notes over here. Jazz Congress, which is awesome, and we're just trying to really get out there. Dates wise, I had a record release date that kind of didn't work out at the very end, but I'm working on a venue now for that.
mhm.
Go and actually play this record.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's amazing how people find these things, and this certainly will help. I mean, the podcast does really well, and so I have a lot of international listeners. Hi
Yeah.
to you, and so there will be people who take notice for sure, and they should. I definitely would recommend this record. I know a lot of times, um, a lot of the artists I bring on are you know uh, I don't want to say more well known, but
No, no, no. Go ahead.
the
Yeah.
Rod Carters, the Dave Strikers, but it's this record holds up, man. It's really really incredible, and each track is different, but there does seem to be an overall. It's always sounds like you. There's an overall concept, and yeah, I just applaud you for putting it out.
Well, conceptually for me, this record, like my writing, is really about the melody.
Yeah,
I like to have compositions that are almost, they're not just head tunes, more through composed type of stuff, where perhaps the solo section will take you to a different place. With the exception of like obviously Tom's Blues, which is clearly an A minor blues, but there's even some music in there that strays away from just the typical blues. There's that B section in there that happens. Um,
yeah,
we've been fortunate, named artists like this last year we opened up for Joshua Redman.
yes. I interviewed him for that show.
You did.
Or no, was it for that?
Was it the Vogel?
Yeah, yes. We live here. It was his newest record. What a
Yeah.
nice, what a nice guy.
Yeah, amazing guy. Runs marathons and he's picking up where, I mean, his playing that night was just it was absolutely mind-blowing. And then I also opened up for a Lee Ritenour.
Oh, that must have been a trip. Yeah,
It was a trip because I can show you, I have it here. I bought this record. This is Captain Fingers, Lee Ritenour.
sure. Yeah,
I literally own the vinyl, and I had to bring it and have him sign it. And we were talking about the record, and he was such a sweet guy. He said very really just accessible. He had mentioned that. Oh, you're not going to believe this. He says, "Come look at this." He brings me out to his stand, and on his stand he goes, "This is the original manuscript transcription for Captain Fingers, which is the title track of his record." He
yeah.
goes, "We didn't have all the technology then, so it's kind of handwritten. So a lot of it might be wrong."
So the one thing I realize the more and more I get to do these things is just really how accessible, especially in the jazz world, but even overall, we're all kind of in the same camp, right? It's just levels of success, perhaps. But yeah, I've been so it's been such an honor to like talk to some of my heroes, and just a level of like it's just like a conversation like anyone would have, you know?
Right. For the most part, I think that's true. I mean, sometimes they say you don't want to meet your heroes because they'll disappoint you or whatnot. But I haven't experienced that. Most of the folks that I've met, that are great players are usually, genuinely humble and excited to talk about you, to talk to you, especially when they know that, their music has resonated with you somehow, you know,
Yeah.
and they get that right away, whether or not you're genuine or if if you're not.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, but
I mean,
this was you asked about the record. Uh, the fellow who mixed the record is Dave O'Donnell.
okay, I'm not familiar.
Dave O'Donnell's an old friend who I met years ago when I was playing in a pop band in Asbury, the Outcry. Um, Dave Dave's an amazing engineer. He's basically engineered and mixed the last 15 years of James Taylor.
Okay.
Uh, he produced the last Sheryl Crow record. Works with mixes and produces like the Expensive Winos. He's done John Mayer. So when you mention that there's a certain sound to the record, I think
Right.
that's really Dave's influence on the record, gluing things together and working with a guy like that who also is steeped in a lot of the music I like. The Metheny's, the Martinos, the Wes Montgomerys. Um, we can listen to those records and use them as references to get not necessarily mimicking sounds, but the kind of energy or the kind what we're looking for from the song and from the record, just to have what we're looking for in a particular record, because he can reference those things.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you mentioned Metheny, and I think if you listen to this record, you would be hard pressed not to hear the influence of Metheny. You could certainly hear in your writing style somewhat, a little bit even in the tone. You don't sound like a Metheny clone or anything like that, but I could definitely hear that he would be someone who influenced you.
I'm not that's a huge compliment to me because I'm a huge fan. I've seen Pat. I mean, I don't know how many times, and when if you can play like Pat, awesome. If you can do what he does, holy cow. I mean, last time I saw Pat was he did a solo show at the Basie, and he
Mhm.
played solo guitar for like 2.5 hours, and talk about courage. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know if you got the chance to see that show, but it was really remarkable.
No, I didn't see that particular one, but I have seen a show where he played about half the set acoustic. I shouldn't say half, but a quarter of it just by himself.
Yeah.
I think he had Antonio Sanchez and Chris McBride.
Oh. Oh, oh,
Yeah,
those guys.
just those two, right?
Those guys.
Coincidentally, Sanchez, I went to college with him.
You didn't.
Yeah, and I did get opportunities to play with him. I doubt. I mean, there's no. We play. Everyone played with everybody, but he, you just knew there was just something like very different about his
Yeah.
ability. Um, yeah, and so But regardless, I mean. Yeah, the thing about Matheny, which you mentioned, I think, and that's never really come. I've never thought of it that way, but that word fearlessness is really true because he puts himself out there he always sounds like Pat Metheny, but he will try. He's just an original, man. He'll just do his thing, and he doesn't care.
Everything from his technique, the way he holds the guitar, the way he holds the pick.
Mhm.
I think everything about his approach, to the instrument and his, his choices and his, you talk about fearless, even, you know, his, sense of like, what's wrong with using major triads? What's wrong with using triads? Why can't we do that? And so he writes these beautiful lyrical tunes and disguises them, with a lot of sophistication. I think at the same time, for me, what people they do compare my writing, they might say something about, and I'm nowhere, they might say something about the fact that I have the same sense that I like lyrical melodies. I want the melodies. In no way, form, can I, his writing is just on another level. So if people are comparing it to the two, humbly, that's a huge compliment that they hear melodies. And for me, jazz music, whether it's jazz or rock or pop or improvisational music, the one thing I love about music and that makes it uh, uh, for me listenable is melodies. I love to hear great melodies. So whether it's a Beatles song or whether a Radiohead song or a Metheny song or a Coltrane tune, I mean, you can walk away singing something. And I think that for my record, I think, and the record that was created and all those musicians and engineers, because it's not a one man band, it's for sure, is hopefully when the audience walks away, they walk away singing a tune too, that they're connected to some melody there. So it's not like what just happened.
Yeah, no, and that comes through. And I think your record and the style in which you play, it seems very accessible, even to people who may not be jazz aficionados.
Right.
Uh, because it is melodic, in the same way that like Pat Metheny's group is as well.
Mhm.
Uh, but also you pay homage to the improvisational elements of jazz within those structure of these tunes that are very well thought out, not just this let's play a standard, get through the head. Jam.
Yeah. Everybody plays.
Uh,
Everybody plays. Good play.
yes,
Yeah. I mean, other influences for me are definitely Pat Martino.
I was gonna ask.
I don't know if you can hear that in the playing, but I mean, I'm sure there's some lines on there that I directly stole from Pat Martino, Wes
Okay.
Montgomery, Grant Green, Jim Hall, Bill Frisell, guys that I listen to, like, and I'm sure you probably would say that just looking down the line, as far as guitar players are concerned. But I also, uh, Brad Moldau. I love Brad Moldau. Keith Jarrett. Matter of fact, there will be a day. Um, I was listening to early Keith Jarrett, like a country. I don't know if you know that song,
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
that gospely kind of a thing, that he was doing with the art with Jan Garbarek in those years. When that kind of was the direction for that song, I wanted it to feel like that. It still had a very earthy kind of a vibe to that music at the time. And those records really resonated with me. And that's part of my history as well.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that. I think those records, I think they were ECM, right? Or those earlier ECM records that he did.
Yeah,
Uh,
with the European quartet. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think they were a little bit I don't want to say underrated, but are possibly deserving of more attention.
Well said, especially from a writing point of view. Compositionally, they're beautiful tunes,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you can just listen to those. Garbrick plays uh, beautifully on the tunes. Is really kind of portrays those melodies in a way that, I mean, I could listen to that over and over and over again.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned. I'm going to go revisit those because I always have enjoyed those records, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
cool.
right. Especially, I think some for me. I don't know how you feel about it, but sometimes things are seasonal.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I listen to a certain record. I'm like, I really love listening to this record in winter. You know, uh, there's a certain aesthetic to all of it, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I know you're talking about my record, but I mean, but, GJ, like you're writing books, you're doing podcasts, you're teaching at the universities, you have your own studio, you got family. What else do you?
I do have a family. I got 3 kids. Uh, I do run. I run. I broke my toe, but
Yeah, I saw that you were running marathons, right?
I've done some marathons. Yeah, I do the thing, man. But it's all fun, you know. I'm enjoying it, and thanks for acknowledging that. But yeah, I don't think you're a lazy guy because you're doing a lot of the same stuff, you know. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I just when I see what you're doing, and I think well, thank you for saying that. I think having people in your life, whether you talk to them every day or talk to them once in a while or just see what they're doing, it's inspiring when you see people that are ambitious, that are doing good work that's passionate about them. And you wouldn't be doing what you're doing, and if you didn't love it, and if you didn't feel the need to write that book, you wouldn't be writing that book.
that's true. Yeah, I think
Something's pushing you, you know.
yeah, that Ray Brown book that's coming out in March. I mean, that's um, God, that's 25 years in the making.
Good
Um,
for you, man.
yeah, and that not having it published, I mean, only because you asked, was uh, several times it was supposed to be published. Not having that gotten done was really the biggest disappointment in my professional life, and I'm like so thankful that finally he's going to get recognized in a way that I hope is proper. Um, like with the support of Oscar Peterson when he was alive, and giving me interviews, and Hank Jones and his wife and all that. So
Wow,
yeah.
wow, that's exciting, Jay. That's
Thank you.
and you're looking at March.
March 1st is the release date, or so they say. Yeah.
Hey, I got to start a podcast and intervio about
I
this.
think you kind of are right now. Let me get back to you because I am curious about it. But if I can go way back, because I don't know. Tell me about where you grew up and your upbringing.
All right. I grew up in Point Pleasant Borough.
Oh, okay.
In a, literally like I have three brothers. We moved down from Jersey City, New Jersey. I think half of Monmouth and Ocean County was born in Jersey City at the Margaret Haig Hospital, right? Um, and we my parents bought a bungalow and took the roof off and put a second floor on. And I think we lived just in the bottom half of the bungalow for several years. We kind of, I know this sounds crazy, but slept in the same bed as my brothers. And my dad and my brothers, took us about 2 years to finish the upstairs and graduate Point High School. And I went right into the Navy band.
Oh, okay.
So I
Wow.
played guitar for the government for about 6 years.
Oh, interesting. All right.
And I met a lot of really amazing musicians that were in the military band. Got out and you know um, uh, got out.
Was it formal training before that? You took
No,
lessons the whole thing?
the gentleman who I know you're going to know who it is, who I really attribute and I can't say enough about from the very beginnings was Vinny Corrao.
Oh, sure. Hmm.
Vinny Corrao, I went to school with his daughter, and
Okay.
hey, my dad gives guitar lessons, and I didn't know who Vinny was, but right there in Point, I would take my guitar, put it in my basket of a bicycle, and like before I had a license, it was like late, probably like the early junior year in high school, and Vinny was like a guru, man. Vinny is a very spiritual cat, and just an amazing, amazing player. I mean, he grew up, he came up with Benson, he came up with Martino. Those guys were all buddies, right? And I think, I'm not sure. Last I talked to Vinny a few years ago, and I know we taught another guitar player who's doing well in Jersey, that Brian Betts, the guy who teaches at Rowan. I know he was another one of his former students, and Frankie Chikala. Um,
Sure.
so it was lessons with Vinny who prepared me for the United States Navy audition. Yeah, I played French horn in high school prior to that.
Okay. Cool. And so you come out of and when did you what were your early influences then? Were you listening to jazz or was it
Early on, I was not really listening to jazz as much until I got into the Navy, and then when I got into the Navy, it really has to do with. You talked about this before, the community that you're with. Like
yeah.
there wasn't a lot of conversation in the borough in the '80s about jazz.
Mhm.
It wasn't happening. It was like you know mostly the pop music, the Dead, bands like that, Eagles, a lot of jam stuff, but. Um, so when I got in the Navy, I was exposed to all these guys from different parts of the world who, they were listening to Parker, they were listening to Coltrane, they were listening to Sonny Stitt, they were listening, and I was like, oh, who are these guys? Michael Brecker came up eventually,
Sure.
um, and I was playing in like all types of bands. So, I mean, it was interesting. Some days I would go out and I would play in a rock band, and some days I would play in, I would have to play snare drum or bass drum for a ship coming in. Some days I'd have to go play in a big band or show band, and some days I play in a small combo. Uh, and one time they sent me to the Admiral's house to play solo guitar.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's a story. I'm a school teacher as well, right?
Yes.
In Wall. This is 23, 24 years now in Wall.
Wow.
And I tell my students this story often because they talk about failure and they talk about, not being able to do things. Or I said, well, I'll tell you a true story. I got called to the Admiral's house to play solo guitar. I was 18 years old, and they sent me up there, and there I am at the, on top of a San Point in Guam, and all these bigwigs are there. It's a dinner party. They set me up in a corner, and I'm ready to go. And I start playing and I get through my first two songs, and I realize that I've only got one song left that I know as far as a complete chord solo. And so I thought, oh, what am I going to do? So I just started playing 2 5 1s and playing lines in between the 2 5s, and a woman walked up to me and she said, tapped me, and she goes, I just really love your sounds. I just love what you're doing. But which is the funny part of the story. But the serious part of the story I tell the students is that I could have melted down, and the next day I could have got up and just put it away, or I could have said to myself that, I'm not going to let this happen to me again. I got to get to work. So learning from your failures, that's something I always talk about with my students over the past 24 years, that, don't have a fixed mindset, have a growth mindset. If something's not working, get up and fix it. So those Navy experiences for me were some of that I still remember that I can share with students.
Yeah, it's so funny, not funny, but it's interesting you say that because nearly everybody I interview, no matter what level they're at or what their level of fame is, they all have that story, that failure moment, that whiplash, Charlie Parker still going. Now that one's over the top, but
Yeah.
and it every single like even even Stryker just recently, because that was the last one I did. He just talked about how he went to a jam session and he was a rock guitarist and he was playing all this rock shit, and someone said,
Yeah.
"Hey,
And they said, we don't, Beth, you don't play jazz. I heard
yeah."
that in the interview.
But everyone has that thing, and I think it's very important that you mention that, especially as an educator, because you have to be able to learn from those mistakes. And it seems like, somewhat culturally, as a teacher, I've noticed that there is a little bit more sensitivity that students have, and as an instructor, we have to kind of tap into each individual. But for any of those students out there who are listening, like, you're gonna fuck up, like,
Yeah.
it's okay. I do it all the time, and you
And
have,
it's okay.
yeah.
It's okay to fail. It's okay to fall down. It's what happens the next moment.
Yeah.
Hey, you and I experience this on the bandstand all the time. I mean, Jay, how many times have you like clammed big time in the middle of a solo or a line? I mean, you have to be what they call like goldfish, right? They don't have a memory. So that line is over. So get to the next note, get to the next moment. You said something really important just now about students, and we could talk about teaching forever because it's another passion of yours, another passion of mine. But you talk about this sensitivity now, and I think there is um, that is a trend at this point where criticism is not viewed in the same way it used to be. And I don't mean criticism in a negative sense. I mean criticism in any way, or the fear of failure, the fear to try something new. I'm seeing less of that, and I think it's really attributed to the fact that there uh, that sense that the kids have that they're constantly being watched, and because of what's available to them with technology.
Right. Well, they're also constantly putting themselves out there to be watched too,
Yeah,
which
that's true.
do, yeah. But like, yeah,
Hard. I mean, you have children, you know what it's like. I have daughters. I know what it's like. It's difficult.
it is. But that is part of the experience. You have to, especially when it comes to jazz music. I mean, because you are creating on the spot, and I can't tell you. Probably last night I had 5 of those experiences.
Sure.
Just it's just. But the beauty of this music sometimes is getting yourself into these like situations and trying to find ways out. I mean, I've
Yeah.
lived. like Grant Green's a great example, right?
Mm.
I listen to some of his records, and he'll play a note that is technically not, in the
Yeah.
studio or something, and he'll just play it 50 times until it sounds good.
He'll
Like
just keep,
that's
it's a,
cool.
if you don't, I'm going to keep serving this to you until you like it.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Eventually,
how
you know
about,
what?
and even the sound on the earlier records, it's just not a, great sound. Although, one of my favorite tracks is Sunday Morning. I don't know if you know that tune, but it's his playing on it's remarkable. But we mentioned this thing about being watched or putting yourself out there. There is a song on my record called "There'll Be a Day," and that song was specifically written about that issue where I talk a lot about this a lot, but that revealing the whole story is that you know you don't get to be the prom queen necessarily, and you don't get to be the captain of the team, or you don't get to be this, or you don't get to be that, and it just seems like there's disappointment after disappointment. But you know, and that's why I think that melody in my mind I would categorize as being a tender melody. Is
Mm,
that it's you are going to have a day. There'll be a day for you. There'll be a day. Just hang in there. There'll be a day. And if you listen to that song, it's kind of got that softness to it. If you listen to that melody, I hope that that comes through. That it's really, really a song of like empathy and love and hope for that. There's going to be a day. So whatever you're feeling right now, it's going to pass. You know.
yes, that's very much true. All right,
Uh,
let me backtrack a little if I could. I'm a little all over the place, but this is good. So you do the military band, as you
yeah.
mentioned. And then from there, clearly you must have gone to school to get your teaching degree. Was it always your desire to teach, and where did you?
Absolutely not. I never thought I would become a teacher. I got out of the Navy. I was going to a pre-chiropractic school.
Mm,
Um, I actually got out of the Navy. I was playing in Atlantic City with some of the show bands,
okay.
Tahoe, and then I hooked up with this band called The Outcry. I think you know John Liedersdorf.
Oh yeah,
John and I lived together for 10 years,
John
uh,
was in that. It was John
and
in that.
he was the drummer. Yeah.
I had no clue, no idea. Okay, yeah,
He was the drummer. My business partner, Jay, who's now my brother-in-law, was the singer, and we had a revolving door of bass players. One of the bass players, really talented guy, Rob Tanico. I don't know if you know Rob,
yeah, I
uh,
know that. Yeah.
but that was 10 years from there. But while we were on the road, I was actually going to college. I was at OCC at the time, and when I joined that band, finished up a semester there, and I was taking classes on the road, going into like Hollywood videos and getting a VCR projector, and writing. I remember writing papers from like El Paso, Texas, in a van, all the way to Battle Creek, Michigan, and those kind of things. And then eventually, when the band folded, I got into teaching at Red Bank Charter School. And from there, I finished my teaching degree up at Monmouth University.
Okay.
From there, I got my master's at Boston University, and I've got a supervisor certificate in fine arts from Jersey City State. And that's as far as I'm going with education. Uh,
Well,
the
you put your
doc,
time.
the doctorate thing is it's too much. It's too much. Yeah.
It's yes. It's funny you mentioned that because I've been looking into it for the last couple of years, and it's a lot of money, and you don't know what kind of return you're going to get from it. It's always good to learn. Don't get me wrong,
Oh yeah, I love the learning.
but on the university level, and especially when it comes to music, there's just only so many jobs, and there's no guarantee that you're gonna
Right.
get one. You know.
And it would seem like a lot of the colleges are, you need your PhD to get a tenure track gig anyway, a doctorate, but they're still just hiring adjuncts, and it's tough.
It is
Yeah,
tough. Yeah,
it's
that's my
tough. But they're lucky to have guys like you over there at Monmouth, you and Bobby and Doug, right?
yeah. I think the staff there is actually really good. And
Dave Tripold, good friend of mine.
oh yeah, Dave's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, yeah, great people over there. But you're right, that is the trend, the adjunct thing for sure.
So to answer your question, so we're still back on track. From there, I got the job teaching at Wall High School, teaching guitar for Keith Calms. I don't know if you know Keith, the classical guitar player. Took that job, and I went over to the middle school and was the band director there for like almost 20 years. Um,
So how did you like? That's a very different thing to be a band director. I mean,
Absolutely
how
different.
did you? That's a transition. Like, I know your music education did teach you a little bit about every instrument. My wife is a middle was a middle school band director now in the grammar schools in Howell, but like that's a big transition. How did you like? How did that work for you?
Well,
From
it's like you would do, I'm going to tell you and you're going to go, yeah, I do the same thing. I played French horn and trumpet through high school as well. And when I got the gig, I went back to Rutgers and I started taking French horn lessons from Doug Lundeen, the chair there, because I realized that, you know what, if I'm going to be doing this and, directing a band and working with band instruments, I'm going to get my chops back up and so I know what I'm doing. So the kids look at you like people, but you know what you're doing. So I did that, and every day I would play. I can play most brass instruments. Woodwind's terribly, not as good. Don't give me a flute; it's really ugly. Just not my thing. So for the last 20 years or so, every day I would be playing tuba, trombone, trumpet, French horn, clarinet, perhaps. And it was a transition, and I recall because you had to do student teaching. I was with a student teacher and watching him teach, and I'm thought to myself, how does he know what he's hearing that? How does he know all those fingerings so quickly? And it's just time, just being in the environment. My band's at Wall. I'm very proud of the kids and what the work we've done there together. I mean, we had, Wall Township was pretty much a premier band, and the kids there always crushing all shore every year. Region kids. I got two freshmen now that are all state. So regardless of, and a lot of it has to do with the private teachers in the area, for sure. But you as the instructor, you as the person who owns the studio, you're the tool of inspiration, right? If you don't show that passion, they're not going to have it.
yeah, yeah, no, it's great. And then I mean, for those of you who are not familiar, Wall has a very good music program, and it's very unique to our area in that it still has a string program,
Yeah,
right? Uh,
it
down
still does.
there.
It still does. I know some of your students are there, John, in particular.
Yeah,
Uh,
doing great.
yeah,
Yeah.
he plays in my summer jazz ensemble every year. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see the repertoire that we play there in the summer.
Yeah, he brings me the stuff, yeah, to work
But
on.
it's real deal stuff. It's real Curnow charts. It's not for the faint of heart when you're a high school kid.
Yeah,
Um,
but
now I'm back. What's up? I'm sorry.
no, I'm saying it's a testament to you because there's a guy, and he's gonna love to hear his name on here. But yeah, John is like, I mean, you really, he talks very fondly of you, and some of my other students who I've had as well, and it's really nice to see that that still happens in the school system, less and less in our area for sure.
Yeah,
But it's cool. So I commend you for that.
thank you. Thanks, Jay. I'm
Yeah.
back at the high school now teaching guitar, a beginning guitar, and I have a really neat classic guitar ensemble. There's about 7 guitar players in there, and we play all classical guitar ensembles.
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah.
And it's really great. The kids came in this year with limited reading skills, um, and they're doing really great. I mean, we're playing some really great arrangements. It's a real neat thing to be. As a matter of fact, I have a couple of instruments over here that I borrowed from friends. There's a baritone classical guitar.
Oh, how cool. Yeah.
There's a requinto over there,
Mhm.
and I think you might like this. It's a classical bass guitar, but it's not a bass guitar.
Hmm.
It's a 6 string classical guitar, and let me see, I'll show it to you. I think you might like seeing this. So the point is that we can play Bach chorales or any kind of chamber music with them. Let me show you. Which one's the bass? Yes. Let's see.
And that's tuned in guitar tuning or
Yes, it's tuned. It's tuned just like a guitar, only it's a 6 string. Yeah, here you go. And it's nylon.
oh wow. How cool, man.
It's just remarkable to play. It's you know you can hear it.
Who
You
would
know,
have known that exists? That's so wild.
um, so we basically have all the voicings for the orchestra, which we'll be exploring this semester. You know, um,
That's
so
incredible.
that's a nice aspect to be able to you know kind of explore that music at the same time that you're doing your jazz or whatever else that you're doing, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and such a unique thing for a high school to have,
Yes.
opportunity. How cool, man. So, um, I'll try to keep. This is why I don't do these at night. I get a little off track, but
That's okay.
I think we're touching some good things for sure. So, what's the next step for like with the record,
Right.
like that? So, touring, performing, and also any other projects you're working on currently.
Okay, the touring thing is something I really want to do this summer. We have a couple dates booked already. We are going to do the Jersey Jazz and Blues Festival, which we're very grateful to be invited to.
Yes.
That's August 23rd. Um,
My students will be opening for you.
was that?
My students are going to open that.
Oh,
that.
that's great. Your jazz students?
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. Will John be there?
I will probably invite him. He's too busy to be a member of the group right now, but he'll probably get invited for
That's
sure.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice. So we'll be playing that. We have some other dates coming up. I'm playing some trio stuff in Asbury, February 16th with Pascal and Sabine.
Okay. Sure.
With that, Digba Ogunbayi is going to be playing keyboards again. I like doing the organ trio stuff. It's a lot of fun. I know Dave talks about that as well. But really, it's about getting this record out there, trying to get some dates for some touring. Obviously, school year is hard, but definitely summer dates. So anybody out there who wants to hear this record, who's interested in booking RED123, please keep us in mind for opening acts or looking at some, summer touring dates. We'd really love to get out there and play a little bit more with the full band. Yeah.
Right. Cool. And where can website? Where can they find the
Oh,
record?
easy. That's Red123 Music. I'm pretty active on socials. You can check me out on Instagram, Red123. My YouTube channel's out there. You can check that one out too. Check us out on All About Jazz. Um, Look at for Song of the Day. If you want to give it a listen. We're on all the social platforms if you want to check out some of the tunes. And feedback's appreciated. Anybody wants to send me a note, let me know what you like, what you'd like to see, or you know what you want to hear. Check out some of the older material as well. The first record is really proud of that one as well. There's some great tunes on there.
Cool. And did you want to mention your music studio at all?
Yeah, I mean, Jay and I both have music studios. Jason Howell, I hear great things. Music Studios Manasquan Music Academy. It's right in downtown Manasquan. We offer lessons in just about every instrument, and we do a big jazz program in the summer. We run two different groups, and the adult group, the older group is audition only. And why is it audition? Because just like I would do in school, we want to make sure that you're comfortable playing that level of music, so it's not a burden. Summer should be fun and challenging, but not to the point where it's killing your summer.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And for those of you who are not familiar, where the areas we're mentioning are on the Jersey Shore, which is a touristy area in the summer. So
Yeah,
to get students to do anything
yeah.
in the summer is kind of a
Yeah.
challenge because it's surfing, it's hanging out at the beach, fishing, doing the whole thing.
Right, and this is a great place to be in the summer. So, and there's a lot of great live jazz. You at the Chubby Pickle. I know, Triumph offers a lot of live jazz in the area. Also, what are the clubs that you can think of offhand,
Oh
Jay?
yeah, I mean those are the we were doing the Long Branch Distillery. That's since
Right,
closed. Triumph has been a good place to play for sure. Asbury's just got a bunch. The McLuhan's Supper Club has got some
right.
great things happening at times.
Trying to negotiate a opening date. I mean, a date now for the record release at the Wonder Bar, which I think would be an interesting place for our band because it's a little bit louder.
Yeah, that would be a cool place to do it. Yeah, I mean they have some jazz stuff for sure at times.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, yeah, let me know. Definitely.
Yeah, I'd love for you to come see this band.
Yes, I would like this. So, Pascal and Sabine. That's not the full band, though. That's your
It's
organ.
just a trio. Digger's going to play keys, and when we have Faith Fatum playing drums for that one, we'll play. Geez, probably that. I don't know, 8, 10 Wes Montgomery tunes, a couple Matheny tunes, some standards, some Red 123, but not a lot. Uh, just a good smattering of this, that, and the other thing. Not a lot of straight ahead stuff, not a lot of traditional jazz stuff, but people, the tunes that we do play, I think people dig.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. And so what do you see in the future? I mean, you said you've been teaching now with 23, 24 years. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, what would I like to see in the future? Jay, bucket list. I'd like to tour. For me, as well as I do how things work with the business now. I think if stream my song 100 times, I'll make $1. So it's really not about the economics of the deal as much as it getting out at this point in my career, getting out and playing now. I think I've given a lot over the past 24 years, to the students and to communities of working with people to create music for them. And now I'd like to play music. I would like to create the music on this end of it, get out there and play. Hopefully this summer a little bit more. I'm still looking for more bookings, but as you know, it's difficult to get bookings necessarily when you're a baby band, so to speak, out there, and you haven't had the um, uh, you haven't released several records and have toured with X, Y, and Z, because it's like everything else. There's a certain stable that most people use for X, Y, and Z.
yeah, but I mean, you're doing the thing. I mean, you're out playing at the Vogel, opening for major acts. It's really impressive. And I know as a board member, Jersey Shore Jazz and Blues, your band is very well respected,
Well,
and
thank you for saying that. I
they're
have
very
a big shout out to my friend Chris Andrich if he hears this. For he was Tri City Jazz. Chris and I were old friends back in Point Pleasant. We reconnected, and he was very helpful in encouraging me to make this second record, when I didn't think that things were going to be up. I didn't have the resources to pull that together. He really encouraged me to make some different efforts to pull that together. So that was appreciated. I know he's very big in the Monmouth County arts circles. You might know Chris. I'm not
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So that's great, man. And I'm glad you made the record. I would recommend to my listeners to check it out for sure. The name of the album again is Newtown. The band is Red123. Definitely worth listening on all the streaming sites, I'm sure. And is there a physical way they can buy a physical copy as well?
Physical copies are only going to be at shows.
Okay.
Um, as far as storefronts or anything like that. Not really streaming services on every streaming service at this point. Um, Please, if you're interested in anything, just drop me a line on my website or any socials, and if you'd like something like that, I can certainly get it to you. And I want to thank Jay. Thank you for inviting me to do this.
Oh yeah, thanks for doing it, man.
Keep